ignite conflicts that have been building for weeks. The young and the restless spoilers for Friday, June 26th, imply some bombshells on the horizon as Genoa City heads into the weekend. Victor Newman, Eric Braeden, pulls out a miracle, while Nate Hastings, Sean Dominic, is recruited for a special project. Plus, Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, takes a major risk. Learn more about what's going down during Friday's show. Key takeaways. Victor makes a surprising discovery that could change Nikki's medical outcome. Nikki's emergency surgery brings the threat of permanent blindness. Dr. Stephanie Simmons recruits Nate for a special mission tied to Nikki's crisis. Jack and Kyle consider a dangerous gamble to rescue Diane. Patty holds the key to Diane's fate as the rescue mission reaches a critical turning point. Victor Newman's miracle. The young and the restless spoilers for Friday, June 26th, hint that Victor will make a shocking discovery regarding Nikki Newman's, Melody Thomas Scott, condition. Right now, Nikki is in the hospital and needs emergency surgery to remove the tumor on her optic nerve. As the mass grows, her eyesight is at risk. However, the doctors have even noted that surgery could cause the woman to go blind. Victor and Nikki are at odds, so will the mustache be the one to save Nikki's day, and her vision? If Victor saved the day, he might be also saving their relationship. Will he bring in a miracle doctor, or have an epiphany where Nikki's health is concerned that can help the medical staff with treatment options? Only time will tell. Daily poll. No active poll available. Nate Hastings is recruited. Meanwhile, Dr. Stephanie Simmons, Vivica A. Fox, will attempt to recruit Nate for a special project. All arrows point to the idea that Nate will somehow help Nikki and her team of doctors in some fashion. As his hand injury prevents him from conducting surgery, how can Nate help from the sidelines? Only time will. Jack Abbott's big risk. Lastly, the young and the restless spoilers for June 26th reveal that Jack and Kyle Abbott, Michael Mealer, will take a massive risk where Patty Williams, Stacey Hayduke, is concerned. The men have been toying with the idea of heading to Dr. Lawrence Markham's, Jerry Burns, home to see if they can rescue Diane Abbott, Susan Walters. Still, there's a lot that can go wrong with that plan, and as Patty is a wild card, they are afraid to do this. With that said, could they convince Patty to allow them to see Diane? They are at the mercy of a psychopath, so what will the men do? What storyline are you most interested in seeing unfold on Friday? In my view, this episode proves that old wounds never truly heal. Victor races to save Nikki, Jack risks everything, Nate recruited and Patty cornered. The storm gathering over Genoa City had been building for days, but on Friday, June 26th, it threatened to break with devastating force. For Victor Newman, nothing mattered except Nikki. For Jack Abbott, the line between loyalty and recklessness disappeared entirely. For Nate Hastings, a surprising recruitment effort placed him in the middle of a dangerous power struggle. And for Patty Williams, the walls finally began closing in. The day opened before sunrise at Newman Ranch. Victor stood alone in his study, staring out the window as darkness blanketed the property. Normally, he would have been preparing for another battle in business. Instead, he was fighting a far more terrifying enemy. Fear. Nikki's condition had worsened overnight. The doctors had tried to remain optimistic. Claire had tried. Victoria had tried. Even Nick had attempted to reassure everyone. But Victor saw the truth. He always did. Nikki was getting weaker. Every hour seemed to bring new complications. Every test raised new questions. And Victor was running out of patience. His phone rang. Nate. Victor answered immediately. "What do you have for me?" Nate hesitated. That hesitation alone told Victor everything. It's not good news. Victor closed his eyes. Across town, Nikki lay in a hospital bed, exhausted from days of treatments and uncertainty. The once vibrant woman who held the Newman family together now looked fragile. Yet her spirit remained intact. That was what frightened everyone most. Nikki kept insisting she would be fine. But everyone around her knew she was struggling. Nate reviewed the latest medical reports. "We're seeing additional symptoms." Victor's jaw tightened. "What symptoms?" Nate carefully explained the concerns. Vision issues. Neurological complications. Unexpected reactions. None of it fit neatly together. And that meant specialists were still searching for answers. Victor slammed his hand onto the desk. "Find someone who can help." "We are trying." "No." Victor's voice turned cold. "You're going to do more than try." The line fell silent. Victor continued. "I want every expert available." "Victor. I don't care where they are." His voice thundered. "Bring them here." Meanwhile, Claire sat beside Nikki's bed. Nikki offered a tired smile. "You should go home." Claire shook her head. "No chance." Nikki laughed softly. "You sound like your grandfather." "Good." That earned another smile. For a brief moment, things felt normal. But Claire noticed Nikki rubbing her temples again. The headaches were becoming more frequent. And despite Nikki's attempts to hide them, everyone noticed. Claire reached for her hand. "You don't have to be strong every second." Nikki squeezed back gently. "I know." But they both knew Nikki would keep fighting regardless. Across town at the Abbott mansion, Jack Abbott faced problems of his own. Patty Williams remained the center of an increasingly dangerous situation. Her obsession. Her unpredictability. Her refusal to accept reality. Everything had escalated. Jack desperately wanted to help her. But helping Patty often came at a tremendous cost. Diane watched him pacing the living room. "You can't keep doing this." Jack stopped. "Doing what?" "Trying to save everyone." Jack sighed. "It isn't that simple." "It never is." Diane folded her arms. "You are risking everything." Jack looked away. Because she wasn't wrong. Patty's emotional state had deteriorated. She felt cornered. Abandoned. Threatened. And when Patty felt threatened, history suggested disaster often followed. Jack remembered past crises. Past breakdowns. Past tragedies. He couldn't shake the feeling something terrible was approaching. The doorbell rang. Diane immediately sensed trouble. Jack opened the door. A familiar face stood there. Detective Chance Chancellor. Chance didn't waste time. "We need to talk." Jack's expression darkened. "What happened?" "It's Patty." Minutes later, Chance explained the latest developments. New reports. New sightings. New concerns. Patty was becoming increasingly unstable. Authorities feared she might act impulsively. Jack sat heavily. "This is getting worse." Chance nodded. "That's why I'm here." Diane listened quietly. She understood Jack's compassion. But she also understood danger. And Patty represented danger. The kind nobody could predict. Meanwhile, Nate found himself drawn into a different conflict. His medical expertise remained crucial to Nikki's case. But another opportunity suddenly emerged. Victoria requested a meeting. Nate arrived expecting medical discussions. Instead, Victoria surprised him. She wanted his help navigating broader family concerns. The Newmans needed trusted allies. People capable of thinking clearly during a crisis. People who could bridge emotional and practical realities. Nate fit that description. Victoria spoke carefully. "Everyone is focused on Nikki." "Of course." But the family is starting to fracture. Nate understood immediately. Stress created cracks. Fear widened them. And uncertainty often exposed long-hidden tensions. Victoria leaned forward. I need someone I can trust. Nate considered her words. The request carried enormous implications. Helping Nikki was one thing. Stepping deeper into Newman family dynamics was something else entirely. Yet he couldn't ignore what was happening. Victor was obsessed with finding answers. Nick was struggling emotionally. Victoria carried enormous responsibility. Claire felt helpless. Everyone was hurting. And someone needed to provide stability. Nate finally nodded. I'm in. Victoria smiled. Thank you. Back at the hospital, Victor arrived carrying enough determination to frighten everyone in the building. Doctors immediately noticed his mood. Nurses stepped carefully. Staff members exchanged nervous glances. Victor wanted answers. Not explanations. Not theories. Answers. One physician attempted to provide an update. Victor interrupted instantly. What are you doing differently today? The doctor blinked. We're continuing evaluation. That's not what I asked. Victor's stare intensified. What are you doing differently? The room grew silent. Even experienced professionals struggled under Victor's scrutiny. Finally, another specialist entered. She introduced herself confidently. Unlike others, she wasn't intimidated. She outlined several new possibilities. Additional tests. Experimental approaches. Outside consultations. Victor listened carefully. For the first time all day, he seemed cautiously hopeful. When she finished, he extended his hand. Get started. Elsewhere, Patty wandered through Genoa City feeling increasingly desperate. Every conversation felt threatening. Every glance seemed suspicious. The world appeared to be closing in around her. Paranoia mixed with loneliness. And loneliness often pushed Patty toward dangerous decisions. She replayed old memories. Jack. Their complicated history. The love she believed existed. The future she once imagined. Reality no longer matched those dreams. And Patty struggled to accept that. She stopped near Chancellor Park. Children laughed nearby. Couples walked together. Life moved forward. But Patty felt stuck. Frozen. Lost in a past she couldn't release. Then she spotted someone watching her. At least she thought she did. The figure disappeared almost instantly. Patty's pulse accelerated. Were they following her? Monitoring her? Trying to trap her? Fear exploded inside her mind. She hurried away. Unfortunately, Chance's concerns were proving accurate. Patty was spiraling. And nobody knew what she might do next. Later that afternoon, Jack received another call. This time it wasn't Chance. It was Patty herself. The sound of her voice immediately raised alarms. She sounded frightened. Confused. Desperate. Jack. Patty, where are you? I need help. Jack closed his eyes. Diane watched from across the room. The expression on Jack's face told her everything. Patty was in trouble. Or creating trouble. Possibly both. Jack spoke gently. Tell me where you are. Patty hesitated. They're coming. Who? Everyone. Her breathing quickened. They want to take everything away. Jack tried calming her. Nobody is coming after you. That's not true. The call suddenly ended. Jack stared at his phone. Diane already knew what he intended. No. Jack looked up. Diane. No. She stepped closer. You cannot chase after her alone. Jack struggled. Every instinct demanded action. Patty needed help. But Diane feared exactly where that impulse might lead. Chance arrived shortly afterward. Jack informed him about the call. The detective immediately mobilized resources. Patty had become a priority. Time mattered. Every minute increased risk. Meanwhile, Victor finally visited Nikki. The moment he entered her room, his entire demeanor changed. The ruthless businessman disappeared. Only the husband remained. Nikki smiled weakly. You look worried. Victor sat beside her. I'm not worried. She raised an eyebrow. You're lying. Victor laughed softly. One of the few people alive who could call him out so effortlessly. Nikki touched his hand. You don't have to carry this alone. Victor looked at her. His eyes revealed something he rarely showed anyone. Vulnerability. I can't lose you. The words barely escaped. Nikki's expression softened. You won't. Victor wanted desperately to believe her. But confidence had become difficult. Because money couldn't solve everything. Power couldn't solve everything. Influence couldn't solve everything. And for perhaps the first time in years, Victor faced a problem beyond his control. That realization terrified him. As evening approached, Nate received an urgent update. New test results had arrived. The information could change everything. He immediately contacted Victor. Victoria. Nick. Everyone needed to know. The family gathered quickly. Hope and dread filled the room simultaneously. Nate reviewed the findings carefully. Some answers finally emerged. Not all. But enough to provide direction. Enough to justify optimism. Victor listened intensely. Every word mattered. Every detail carried enormous significance. When Nate finished, the atmosphere shifted. For days, uncertainty had dominated. Now there was at least a path forward. A difficult path. But a path nonetheless. Victor exhaled slowly. The fight wasn't over. Far from it. Yet Nikki finally had a chance. A real chance. Across town, Patty's situation reached a breaking point. Chance's team narrowed her location. The search intensified. Jack insisted on helping despite objections. Diane hated the idea. But she understood something. Jack would never abandon Patty. Not when she was clearly unraveling. Not when lives could be at stake. Night settled over Genoa City. Streetlights illuminated quiet roads. Rain clouds gathered overhead. The atmosphere felt ominous. Patty stood alone in an abandoned area near the edge of town. She looked exhausted. Defeated. Cornered. The sound of approaching vehicles echoed in the distance. Her eyes widened. Fear surged again. Then headlights appeared. One vehicle. Then another. Patty realized she had nowhere left to run. Moments later, Chance stepped forward carefully. Patty. She backed away. Don't. Nobody wants to hurt you. That's what everyone says. Jack emerged from behind Chance. Patty froze. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The police. The fear. The confusion. Only Jack remained. Tears filled her eyes. Jack. His voice remained calm. "It's over." Patty shook her head. "No." "Yes." He moved closer. "You don't have to do this anymore." The emotional walls she had built began collapsing. Years of pain. Years of obsession. Years of heartbreak. Everything surfaced simultaneously. Patty started crying. Chance signaled officers to remain back. This moment belonged to Jack. The risk was enormous. But Jack understood something nobody else did. Patty didn't need confrontation. She needed compassion. Eventually, Patty lowered her guard. The crisis eased. Not completely. But enough. Enough for authorities to intervene safely. Enough to prevent disaster. Enough to give Patty another chance. As the night ended, Genoa City found itself suspended between hope and uncertainty. Victor remained focused on saving Nikki. Jack continued risking everything for people he refused to abandon. Nate stepped into an increasingly important role. And Patty finally faced the consequences of her choices. Friday's emotional chapter would leave lasting consequences. Relationships would be tested. Secrets would emerge. New alliances would form. And old wounds would reopen. Because in Genoa City, peace never lasts forever. Especially when powerful families, fragile hearts, and dangerous obsessions collide. And with Nikki's future hanging in the balance, Victor's determination reaching unprecedented levels, and Patty's fate finally being decided, the next chapter promised even greater drama. The battle for survival had only begun. And no one would emerge unchanged.